Good afternoon, guys. It's Mike over at Skill of Strength. We're going to talk about the push-up today. The push-up is a fantastic upper body pushing exercise, but it's one of the most butchered things that you can do. So how can we test and how do we know whether or not people are ready for push-ups? Well, within the FMS screen, we have the trunk stability push-up. That will give you a ton of information on whether or not they're actually ready for push-ups or whether or not they need some appropriate regressions to allow them to gain the technique and gain the strength to move on. So the first thing that we need to understand with push-ups is the pelvic position, okay? Now, if people don't understand how to find a neutral pelvis, right from the get-go, they're not gonna really understand how to do a push-up, right? So the biggest mistake I see is too much extension, just lumbar extension. They don't have the ability to maintain a neutral pelvis. So even before you get into a push-up pattern, you may want to just educate them on where their pelvis is in relationship to the rest of their body. And you may have to get them in quadruped to teach them. So it's important to educate them on pelvic positioning before anything else. And I would give you the advice that on any exercise, pelvic position is important. So educate your clients on finding neutral and learning how to maintain neutral for the duration of any drill. Okay, so pelvic position is important. Now, the other thing that people goof up on is just shoulder positioning in general, right? A lot of the times people flare the elbows up too much, right? So you see some of these ones, right? You see the elbows going up real wide. You see that, or you see the hips too low, and you see one of these things, or everything too narrow. Now, if people are having a tough time understanding the positioning, you can actually teach them how to own that positioning via a standing row. Very, very simple. Now, what are we going to do with the standing row? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get them in a straight line. We're going to make their feet directly underneath their hips, and we're going to level off the pelvis. Why? Because that level pelvis that we're going to utilize standing is going to be the same level pelvis that we're going to utilize in the prone position. Obviously, there's more of a stability requirement because we are resisting gravity. So the key here, guys, is I like to cue shoulders down, and when we row, we're gonna basically pull the rib cage towards the pelvis and maintain that position. We're gonna row. We're gonna drive the shoulder blades back, and I like to perform an isometric hold in this position. And then boom, just come on in and out. And the hypermobile client's gonna do one of these, right? They're not gonna finish their shoulder blades back. Their scapula's gonna stop and they're gonna dump their shoulder forward. So guys, you're gonna have to do a little bit of coaching. Yes, you actually have to coach people. You can't just say go do push-ups. You're gonna have to cue them on how the scapula and the glenohumeral joint work together. So as they row, they're gonna start to row. Their scapula is going to go into retraction and they're gonna finish with a nice tall position. Just make sure you teach them about how to position their shoulder. A lot of people will row too far backwards because they're looking for that scapular retraction, but they have this big forward translation of the glenohumeral joint. So teach them about positioning early on, maybe via a standing row before you do anything else. From there, guys, once they understand some basic shoulder positioning and pelvic positioning, I always say, can you get your body in a straight line? Can you get into the tall position, whether it's, making this a little bit higher via a bar? Can you own that? Now, what I'm talking about, guys, is first hand position. Hands are directly underneath your shoulders. We're going to corkscrew down, okay? We're not going to be in full scapular protraction. We're not going to be in retraction. We're going to be neutral. Boom. From there, can we level off the pelvis and own quadruped? From quadruped, can we extend one leg, maintain position? In this, what I call a mountain climber position, can we go here, and then can we just hang out here? Can someone isometrically hold the positioning there? Cool. If they can, then you introduce some other sort of dynamic variable. It can be a mountain climber, it can be, a shoulder tap, it can be a hand to hip tap. It doesn't make a difference. But can they maintain that positioning when we throw a little bit more at them? Now, lastly, guys, I'm a huge fan of systems. Now, at our gym here at SOS, on the racks, We don't have a Smith machine because, well, we just don't have a Smith machine. But we have color codes. So we've got red, yellow, green, and white. And we just tell people, very, very simple. You're gonna start at a certain position whenever we run them through their basic fundamental movements and testing. We're gonna start them off and we're gonna say, hey, if you can own 10 repetitions here, I want you to drop down to that next position and just try to give me 5 or 6. And then work your way back up to 10, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't have to be crazy, crazy complicated, but show me, 3 to 4 sets of 10, drop it down, show me 5 or 6. We're not going back up to 10 because they need to work their way through it because it is going to be a little bit more complicated, a little bit tougher. And then just work on the process, guys. Very, very simple. Even just doing, basic, push-ups on your countertop. Guys, that's fine. That's a great progression for some people, or even on a bench. That's fine, but the color-coded system is very, very easy to use. So simple ways, but just make sure that people understand the pelvic position, right? And they understand the scapular position and the glenohumeral joint position. And if you don't educate people on those things early on, they're gonna have a tough time. And you don't want to do your work twice. If you're going to be working with some, you might as well take those things off the table, educate them early on, get them into good habits, and then send them, as opposed to saying, well, a month down the road, well, why does your push-up look so poor? Well, it's because they didn't learn how to do it correctly. So, guys, don't do your work twice. Simple progressions on the push-up, and go from there. So remember, pelvis, scapular positioning, glenohumeral positioning, and then just smart coaching and smart progressions. See you soon.